We've got a quorum. We got a camera here again tonight, which I know, Mr. Graham gave us the, government code, and that's fine, you can do that. But under that same section of the government code, the town has the right to tell you where you can put your camera, so we're gonna have you put your camera up here in the front.
Okay.
Closer to the, council, table up here.
That's actually better for me anyway.
And then, is there a live feed going on?
A what?
A live feed? Is that a live feed or
No.
just recording?
No, it's just recording.
Okay. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, before we get started, I'd like to make a motion that we adjust our agenda, moving items 3 and 4 up, so we can go ahead and get them out of the way and taken care of prior to moving on.
Okay, so we have a motion to, our agenda to move 3 and 4 up above. So it'd be 3 and then 4 right now?
Correct, I'm sorry, yeah, to go ahead and do an approval of our minutes from the last meeting and then move directly into our regular agenda.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries, so we're gonna do approval of our minutes. So once you've had a chance to look at it, you wanna make a motion in a second? Go ahead and
I
do so.
motion we approve the minutes from last week's.
Hold on.
So, it says here, motion to accept the minutes with the correction for 5.4 to reflect a motion was made by JT Trevino, seconded by JT Trevino.
No, that was
Everyone, we need to adjust.
Need to correct that again.
not. I can do it.
Okay, say that again.
Well, so
Yeah,
it says, I made the motion.
Seconded.
I got you. Okay.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
and you've got a typo on the same one, all in favor, motion carried.
Motion carried.
More tape.
This is what happens when you're trying to cram stuff in after a fiber optic crash. So I apologize.
That's okay.
All right, do I have a motion after that?
Premature motion.
Do I have a second?
The second motion.
Who first did? Who second?
Steve one.
Okay, thank you.
Let's do it, I'm sorry.
JD, for a second.
Who's first?
All right, and then,
All in favor?
Aye.
looking out for me. Okay,
Oh, you only need to catch your breath. I know you were rushing.
No, I'm fine.
All right.
okay, so we're gonna move on to number 3 now, which is a regular agenda meeting. Let's discuss, consider act on.
Four.
No, we changed it.
No, I'm sorry, you're right.
Oh, sorry, okay.
So, number 3, a regular agenda, discuss, consider act on the following items. Or one is discuss with, Abigail of KSA Engineering regarding services provided and assistance, current and future projects under consideration. The floor is yours, sir.
Sorry, I walked in a couple minutes late, but good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Abiel Carrillo with KSA Engineers, and I've been helping the town on various efforts throughout the last few years, notably related to the item today is helping staff with the review of developments that come in, the engineering, reviewing for things like flood control, adherence to town standards, compliance with making sure that developers are complying with the requirements to coordinate with TxDOT on driveways, the Army Corps on projects that drain out to floodplains, protecting development from flooding neighbors, things like that. And I know there's been a lot of activity in the last few months months or maybe even year and a half or so, a lot of the flurry of activity that's being prompted by both the existing Parker corridor and the projected improvements along Parker that TxDOT is undertaking, as well as the development of other corridors like Park and just the expansion that's been inevitable from the Metroplex. And then the interesting dynamic in the town of a lot of the interest for development has been in your ETJ, which gives you some jurisdictional control, but you have to interact with the county because of course the project in the ETJ is actually in the county. Some of the legislative changes at the state level are, I'll say, changing the way that cities are allowed to influence the ETJ. For example, now there's a new law that allows for the opting out of the requirements and a few other things that are going on. And so in conversations with Leanne, she had asked me to come in front of you with just a loose set of talking points of some of the things that some of the communities that are in this growth pattern, like the town is, are undertaking just in the face of the pressures of keeping up with, managing the growth while of course keeping the great character that makes the town of St. Paul unique. One of the items that I'll start with is the ordinances that you have that reference development standards I'm not sure how far they date back, and maybe somebody, if I say something that somebody knows is different, I don't mind that you chime in. But there are a lot of references to that tie your set of ordinances to the city of Plano, for example. And it's understandable why. The city of Plano in the 90s was that one community that was big enough, that was spearheading the new wave of development and what the North Dallas region was going to look like. And so they undertook this massive effort to develop standard drawings, for example, the way that roads are paved, even things like the thickness of the concrete and how rebar is laid and things like that, that was a little bit different and adjusted for the more suburban conditions outside of Dallas, but very specific to the north side of the Dallas metro. And it made sense at the time probably that the town saw that big community and attached its ordinances to that city. But we are running into some instances where the city of Plano, of course, continues to grow and continues to develop. Now it's pretty much built out, but I don't know that it makes sense anymore to be so tied. This town of St. Paul, small community with the rural, unique character, requiring things that match up with the city of Plano. Now you have other neighbors that have contexts that are more aligned with what you have. And I say that because in conversations with Leanne, I always stress that it's important that whatever effort results of this conversation and future conversations, I always say that I don't want this to turn into a science project. The city of Plano has a set of standards that's probably 1,000 pages long. I know that you are not intending to, even if you're concurring with some of the things that I'm saying, to take the town to that point. But there are some opportunities to, take a page from some things that maybe the city of Wiley is doing, some things that Lucas is doing, maybe some of the communities to the east, Lavon, places like that, where you can kind of detach yourself from some of those older references that are the basis of a lot of your ordinances today, and realign them to match up with the rural character, but that promote the types of growth that you want to see in the community. Another example, the Collin County is updating the arrangements that they have with the communities that are inside the county. They are updating their engineering standards. They are changing the way, for just in the weeds example, the way that you compute the amount of stormwater runoff that runs off the site. And so that changes the way that their storm drains are being designed. It's now a little bit mismatched with the city of Plano's, which the town is tied to. So we had a conversation with the county. Hey, if there's this effort to kind of revisit some of the ordinances, maybe it's the opportunity to align the town with the county. It makes the effort from developers a little bit easier to develop in the town, along with other sets of ordinances that match the vision and mission of the mayor and council. So those are just some of the examples of some of the things that Leanne asked me to just kind of touch on. I know there has been an effort to potentially update the town's comprehensive plan. If for those that may not be familiar, a comprehensive plan has various goals, but it captures the vision and mission that a community is trying to work towards. It has a set of high-level goals and a lot of other state and federal requirements that set the stage for defining the community. Some of the things that are included, for example, are typically included are a projection of the land use of the city and the ETJ. So planning and zoning is very much involved in that effort. And some of the related things like, okay, well, what does that mean if you had water and sewer facilities? What would that mean for your capital improvements plan? Does it mean that you need expansions to your wastewater treatment plant? I know the town doesn't have that, but if you know, just speaking of a hypothetical community. Another element, for example, is a updated thoroughfare plan. I know that most people know, especially in a town like St. Paul, what roads function, how roads function in the town. A thoroughfare plan is the basis for the federal government being able to allocate funding. What I mean by that is to pursue federal grants, the U.S. Department of Transportation will only fund improvements on a certain type of facility and above, basically like an arterial or a high-level collector. And so not having a thoroughfare plan that's updated may exclude some roads that maybe are new or that have changed in a community. And there are other elements there are some architectural elements, and basically the comprehensive plan asks the community, what does your community want? You know, what does St. Paul look like in 10, 20 years? So you might have seen, when you Google comprehensive plan, you might see imagery of these workshops where the public comes in and they're literally looking at images of architectural types, and they're selecting, hey, these are the types of things that we want to see in the community. We need more schools, we need more parks, and those may or may not become high-level goals that are included in the comprehensive plan. Does the community always act on and accomplish all the goals? No. You know, these goals are usually 20 goals deep, and they are very high level and a little bit. Sometimes they can be a little bit vague. Things like, you know, that just as an example, the community may want the town to be, or a city to be more walkable, and that's the goal. What does that mean? Does that mean more sidewalks? Does that mean detached trails? Does that mean shoulders where people can walk, you know, to their neighbors' homes? So there's a lot of definition that needs to happen, so it's a little bit high level. But the comprehensive plan does need to be updated every so often. I think it's every 5 years. I might be wrong on that, but it's basically periodically. And then as the town becomes more just bigger geographically and has more things to consider, then the comprehensive plan becomes a little bit more complex, and there's just kind of different things to consider. I know there are some interesting projects that have been coming, knocking on your doors, that trigger special use permits, and some of the language in your ordinances on how to handle those are a little bit outdated, and there are some new uses that are new to a lot of communities. One that comes to mind, I don't know that that's the case in this community, but as you may imagine, a lot of communities are evaluating electric vehicle charging stations. You know, that's a category that didn't exist 10 years ago. And like that, there are mixed-use developments. Those are all over the Metroplex, but if your community has not really taken a look at the zoning laws and some of the ordinances and procedures, then even something like that is now pretty common falls outside of some of the uses. I know there's a lot of interest in the town from churches and what that means for things like parking, drainage, because there's a lot of grassland that's turned into asphalt. How does that tie in? Concrete. Sorry, concrete, because that's a city of Plano requirement. Concrete, and okay, so then now you have concrete. Well, do you need curb and gutter? That means inlets. That means an underground storm drain system. Where does that water go? Some of the land that might be considered is landlocked. The utility district might not have facilities that go to it, so now the developer is looking to the county to have an on-site sewer system, basically a septic system. What does that mean for the town, for a property that slopes towards a neighbor's home? You know, there's all these things that that you have a solid foundation, but there's the opportunity to take a look and promote the types of developments and activities that are aligned with the mayor and council's vision for the future. So I'll pause there for questions, but those are the types of things that we've been looking at.
So we could start from the plan we have, right? I mean, that should be a good foundation, is that what I heard?
Yes,
And-
exactly.
And we're not growing because the state laws have changed where it's almost impossible for a town to grow. The only thing that grows these days is special utility districts like we have next door. So we're not gonna get any bigger. We might have new roads potentially. Of course, there's some that are being proposed that the county's gonna build. So I think that we have a good basis to start from. What I was asking for was that we just update it and that we take the basis, that, you know, the plan that we have and just look at what have we already accomplished and what do we need to do next, you know, to keep moving on that. Cause, you know, like, several of our mayors have said that's the biggest thing we do is roads, right? And right behind that is the water runoff, because we don't have a lot of other facilities because of the special utility district that we get our water from. So that's my thing. And then the other thing that I really wanted to hear from you on is how you can assist our town in these activities more than maybe you are now, because we don't have a lot of employees, and the ones we have historically been very busy, as Bob can attest to, and you know, Leanne, of course, currently has got a lot of things on her plate. So how much can KSA help us out by augmenting our staff and to be able to get some of these things executed? Because every year we put a lot of money in roads, and every year we don't spend the money. And to me, it's because we have a cycle that we start to get going, we get real slow because it's cold and rainy, we can't get anything done. We always start getting a little bit of stuff going in the spring, and maybe we get one major project done in the summer, and then we run out of time before the budget's over. We need, you know, to partner with you. In some ways, this can be a continual effort that goes around year round, and it doesn't get tripped up by our budget cycle. And so those are things that I'm looking to hear from you on, and how KSA could partner more with us, or if there's other people we need to go to because of whatever reasons.
Sure, definitely. On the comp plan, yes. You have an existing comp plan, and that's the place to start. And it also speaks to how I always, and you'll hear me keep saying this because I really genuinely think it's true that that these efforts should be scaled for the size of the town. You know, the intent, if it's me that helps, is to be really targeted and just get you what you need and to be able to move on. you know, benchmarking, have, you know, setting deadlines for things, making them happen, but not turn them into these 500-page documents that sit on the shelf that nobody will ever read, and they have lofty goals that aren't funded, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, there's an existing comp plan. It'd be a, you know, checklist. Okay, these are the things that a comp plan today should have. Does that match up with what's existing? Okay, what needs to happen? And yes, I personally am not a planner, but I have participated in a lot of comp plans, and we partner with really good firms that work on comp plans that specialize in small communities. That's not the city of Dallas, the city of Fort Worth. On the roadways, we've talked about an option where at the beginning of the budget cycle or at the end of the previous budget cycle, there's a field effort to look at, you know, literally drive the roads in the town. The town is small, it's not hard to drive the entire community, and identify the priorities with a particular emphasis on maintenance and rehabilitation. Yes, completely reconstructing a road gets you a brand new road, but there is also an opportunity to stretch your dollars. And the town, I'll start by saying that the town historically has done a great job of this. I worked with Bob a few years back on a roadway assessment, and that was my first time driving around the community. And even though you can point to roads that have a lot of needs, go to some of the communities in deep East Texas where every single road is just completely crumbled, and so it's a little bit of night and day. But there are, because you have such good facilities, the opportunity is to keep them good. And so doing things like identifying opportunities for crack sealing, fog seals, chip seals, which basically all of them have the word seal. You're sealing the surface to make them last longer, to keep that asphalt from degrading. Fixing potholes, those things can all be mapped out at the beginning of the cycle and then undertaken pretty quickly. And also by identifying projects like that are kind of really targeted and take care of specific deficiencies, then you're also able to do them fairly quickly in two ways. Those kinds of efforts don't need a lot of engineering. Of course, we can assist putting together bidding documents and things like that. But you can also strategically and within the confines of the law play the game of if it's this big, then you have to do this process. If it's this big, then you're under this other process, and then your budgets can match accordingly. So that's the opportunity there.
We've talked about, you and I have talked about it, we're not Frisco, you know, as far as architectural drawings and all that, you know, we can't afford that, you know. But we can afford legal support, engineering support, and for instance, the recent project that we did, I don't recall the street name, the concrete. Levon Parkway, you know, we went in and got all that fixed with the concrete. And then of course coming back and doing the striping. I know in the old days, I'd have been happy to go out there with a can of spray paint and, you know, mark lines and all, but you can't do that now. State laws, you know, has to be a certain paint. It has to be certain, everything has to be, you know, squared off the inches and all that. And so we do need to continue with the engineering. The more, I think our engineering costs are going up, and we're gonna have to rely upon you more because of simply the new state laws.
Is there any way to subsidize some of this cost? You know, with KSA or whomever, in particular with grants, do you have?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we have to have engineering in order to go for grants. And so that's one of the areas that you can certainly help us with. And also, Plano's got a lot of different departments and budgets. They got the streets and police and water and sewer and all that. And we've got 1.5 persons to take care of all that, and, oh, no, we don't handle your water, we don't handle your sewer. Streets, once a year we can do something, you know? So yeah, we need to partner with your firm and others more to continue to take on more of what we need to provide.
Sure.
You have the expertise
In this case, they have a grant writer.
We provide grant writing services in the state of Texas. A grant writer has a special certification, and we have a little bit of a barrier with that. But we work with grant writers. There are a lot of grant writers out there that I know you partnered with before. I'm glad you brought up the grants, Councilor Trevino, because that was another topic of discussion. Yes, there are a lot of grants out there. There are grants from the USDA, from that's the Department of Agriculture, that put out block grants. There are grants from the Federal Highway Administration, from TxDOT directly. Legislature sometimes comes out with certain funds. And then there are loan grant programs, and then there are loan forgiveness programs. A lot of the best deals are allocated to communities that are disadvantaged. And in the town, you know, it's a good thing, but in the town, the average median household income is fairly high. And because of the rural nature of the town, you are often, unfortunately, excluded from some of the big transformative projects that grants typically are tailored for. For example, at the Council of Governments, which is the clearinghouse for federal funding, where communities go and advocate for, hey, I need to build a 6-lane thoroughfare. Right now it's a 2-lane thoroughfare, and so there are competitive processes for being slated to receive funding, and then you are operating under the federal laws and all that stuff. Well, you don't have a lot of that. You know, just to take an example, St. Paul Road, which sees a lot of traffic, especially now with the development there to the north. You would stand a fairly good chance possibly of getting funding if the thoroughfare plan that comes out of the comp plan says that St. Paul needs to turn into a 4-lane divided highway with sidewalks, complete street elements, safety enhancements, capacity enhancements, connections, because it ties into the future of how people access the lake, things like that. They hardly ever, if not never, pay for replacing signs and fixing potholes and redoing the pavement, but not changing the way that the road looks. And so that's where I will always, you know, bring opportunities to you. There are some big grants out there with millions of dollars in funding available. But I also want to be realistic that for your more immediate needs, there are not a lot of grant opportunities out there. Once in a while, this administration has had some flashes in the pan type opportunities for rural communities. Not too long ago, they had something called Build America, small rural something opportunity, but it was specific to increasing capacity. But it was a set aside for small communities. And so it's always the game to be played with grants is to take a project and see what the requirements of the grant are, and then, okay, well, if I add a sidewalk to this project, then I fit the Safe Routes to School federal grant program.
But that's basically more in your specialty areas where you could at least tell us.
Yes.
So we're not sitting here trying to figure out, hey, we can go after this, and 6 months later, we find out, oh, it has nothing to do with us.
Yes, definitely.
So saving us the time and effort on the front.
Yeah, saving you, and of course, if there's a good opportunity, we'll put in the effort. But also, like I mentioned, there's something I'll always stress that, we won't go off and spend a bunch of time on something that is not likely to succeed, so.
We don't have any Section 8, so I don't see how we could get a CDBG.
I don't, there are some grant writers, out there that will spend the time and analyze your community. I know one, and I'll connect him to, with Leanne.
Okay.
That there is a strategy to, section out the town and identify sectors of the town where you may, have, a set of blocks where the project may be viable. So there are some potential opportunities, but you are competing with those communities that have more widespread needs.
And thanks for being here. Kind of question, I'd like a little bit more clarification from Robert's question. KSA's ability to help us. And you said you don't do this, but you have people at your firm that do?
Yes, no, I do, everything I've talked about, I do. On the comp plans, the comprehensive plans are usually led by, like a certified planner.
But you mentioned maybe outside people, is this something that's gonna be done within KSA?
Yes, we can take it on, and we would have some consultants.
Do we get a proposal from you?
Yes, I
at
can
some
put that
point
together.
Okay, so.
Yeah,
You mentioned-
David, real quick, if you don't mind, I want to clarify. I'm talking about the actual execution of the plan once it's made, not just the creation of the plan.
Sure.
Okay, just make sure we're all on the same page.
So, I mean, you mentioned the comp plan, great, needed, want to update ours for sure, but you also mentioned some things that were probably a little bit more urgent or more critical, like a thoroughfare plan. So in your proposal, can you separate out, because I also think we need some more immediate guidance on things like parking, fire lane and access and stuff like that, that our current code is incredibly deficient, and we need some direction on how to improve it. And I don't want to wait on a comprehensive plan for some of the things that are more important to most of the homeowners. So, I'd like to go after this comprehensive plan, but I would also like to go after some of the things that are more very pressing to our community that can be done a lot faster than waiting for a comprehensive plan.
Understood, and yes, you're exactly right. The comprehensive plan is a high-level document, and this effort is more in the weeds, where it's an effort within the realm of engineering. So that is not something that is typically included in the comp plan. So yes, the width of fire lanes and the thickness of concrete.
So how do we communicate some of these more immediate, urgent needs to you?
I understand them. So I will go back and put together a proposal in kind of in a menu form that
So you can
describes
share
each
with
of
us
these
what you
goals.
feel those are, so that we can see if there's anything that we need to ask you to add to it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, Council, I do understand the intent of having basically these, a proposal with line items to help on various tracks. Just to kind of repeat my answer on the comp plan, yes, the comp plan is one thing over here that needs to be done, that has certain goals, and the ordinances, the codes, the in the weeds, what to do when a developer walks in and wants to do something particular that's not matching up with your building codes and things like that. Yes, that is an in the weeds effort. That is a separate menu item that I will put a proposal together on.
But you don't change the codes, you just recommend that, we would change the codes in-house,
Yes.
depending on zone.
That is another very important topic that I wanted to bring up. You all hit the nail on the head that there isn't a lot of staff at the town. You don't have all these departments. And so these efforts do require your, literally your participation, work sessions. You know, we put, for example, a draft of changes for this part of your ordinance, and then there's a work session to discuss them and the implications. And then I picture an effort where the different pieces are blessed and then approved as we move forward through this process. The way I'll structure our proposal will help benchmark the effort so that you are making progress. And I have seen it before where, of course, I have, our firm is 150 employees, and so I can activate them all at the same time. But I know that I can't submit, hundreds of pages of information to you every week with the expectation that it's reviewed.
We don't want that much.
Yes, one day we're
Trust
looking
me.
at the comp plan and the other day we're looking at this
Yeah.
other thing. So the key to success is also to put together a well-structured plan where it's, you kind of focus on one thing, all of us are focusing on one thing, and then we get it done and then move on to the next one. Yes, the comp plan can be moving, in parallel, and, but the idea is to, if there are, for example, let me take the ordinances. There are several ordinances that need to be updated. The floodplain ordinance, the subdivision regulations, the processes, literally the forms that Leanne uses to communicate with developers need to be updated. And so rather than us going back to the office and drafting a 50-page document to replace everything and then it's submitted to you for review, the idea would be to have work sessions. Okay, this first effort is focused on floodplains. Okay, these are the goals, these are the federal regulations that you have to comply with, these are the optional things that you can include. Let's talk about it. Okay, we incorporate those changes, here's the resulting ordinance, and then you go through the approval, and then, okay, next item. And I think if we go through that very structured way of tackling everything, then over the next few months, you will have achieved things. The other thing that it allows you to do is, at any time, if you want to, put this effort on pause, okay, we've accomplished these things, we need to look at, next year's budget, pause until the next year, more funding is allocated. It allows you more control over our services.
When would you expect us to get this first list of the things that you think are more critical?
Sure. I needed this exact back and forth with you all to be able to understand some of the priorities that I know that I've been talking to with Leanne, and within about a week I can put this together.
I think what I'm hearing from most people is, and what I see as our most pressing thing right now is parking. We've got to figure out a parking plan.
Okay.
For if you're parking on concrete or wherever. What are the numbers? What do we need to be looking at? And so that's what I'd like to see, something come back quick on. We got roads, ditches, and all that, but parking is really our focus, or my
Okay.
focus.
Sure.
And I think all of my focus is really.
Yeah, the problem with updating codes is an existing building or entity, they're exempt, or not exempt, but they're legal non-conforming.
Sure.
We can't hold them to our new codes that we pass.
But I think
That's
probably our issues are more with things as they're changing.
Things that are coming in
Having
too.
Things that are coming in.
Being preemptive for.
I think we need to
proactive.
understand that as a whole up here.
Yes, that's a
If we
big
change
point.
codes, it goes in effect that date.
Yes,
that
you're looking to
Oh,
the future.
Adopted. Anything up to that is, like I said, grandfathered in. You can't hold them to those new standards.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then even in that example that you just gave of when, yes, you have, the one project out there that is triggering this thought is the one that may not be solved immediately, and you're looking at the ones that are come in. But
Yeah.
if that development or site that is kind of triggering these thoughts comes to you with a change to a certain part of their site, then those rules do apply. And the idea is that over time, as more activity is happening, then that new activity is complying with your new rules. The other thing that is important to mention, and this is where I am hoping that is the structure plan is truly interactive with you all, is that once you change one thing, then that one thing is related to this other code, and it's related to this other code over here, and it's tied to this. Parking as an example, Once, you know, parking requirements are changed, then it may trigger you to look at, what the driveways look like. And it triggers, what the requirements may be outside of the site to access that driveway. Well, what about lighting? The materials for the striping, like I mentioned, the traffic paint.
Landscaping.
Landscaping.
Dimensions of.
Yes, and on and on and on. And so there's a lot of decisions to be made that are triggered by the decision to change this one thing over here, that are important to have those discussions and then action, discussion, action, to keep changing.
I've got a question about overburdening. On some of the ordinance, some of them are not stringent enough, others seem to maybe overburden. And I guess maybe looking at, are they realistic? You know, because we're
Or
tied into
Plano.
somewhere else, because we're tied to Plano or whatever. Do we wanna be more, you know, do we wanna continue to be more burdening or less burdening, or hit a happy medium? Because, you've been through some of the questions with me, so
Sure.
that you know where I'm going, but.
I know the easy answer is, happy medium. Development will appreciate a strict set of standards because they benefit from a community that functions well. And so, yes, there will be some tough decisions. Maybe you are totally right that there are some things that are maybe a bit strict today, or just out of context because you're not Plano, you're not Frisco, that maybe that link to Plano is triggering now that you can unlink. But it's also true that there might be some tough discussions about, well, if we don't require this thing that we need from developers, maybe that makes the development happen, but we still need that thing that we were asking for.
But I mean, I don't think we've got a whole lot left for developers, do we?
We have, within the limits, we have, not a lot. The ETJ is, of course, you know, to me, a bigger concern.
It's a whole different law thinking
And
it.
that's it's a whole different way of thinking. It's, how we're involved, how we're not involved. Abiel and I met with the county. We learned a lot from them on how they think about things. They learned from us how we look at things so that we can communicate better. You know, the other area that is coming through is the extension of the Park Boulevard, which is gonna open up more ETJ. So, we have to consider what may happen there, what the new House bills do to us with,
That's true.
with regard to ETJ. It's a big subject. But we don't know the effects of those things, because those are all new things right now. And, but we have to kind of be forward-thinking and ahead of maybe what might be coming at us, so we're prepared instead of being sitting ducks and going and reacting, and then when it happens which is what I feel like we do a lot of times, because we're not, it's always been, I think things have changed, we have to get out in front of it, so.
Sure.
Seems like everything's a one-off.
Yes.
You know, we're just like that, except not. So, yeah, it's not quite that, it's, you know, so everything is having to be looked at individually,
And we need professional knowledge that
Yes.
sees it in other places, that has that knowledge, to help us, to actually help us, instead of just trying to figure it out ourselves and shooting ourselves in the foot, basically.
Sure. I will say that, so I've been doing this for 20+ years. I actually worked for, in New Mexico, I worked for the city of Albuquerque in the planning department. I managed a section that reviewed development. So and we work with a lot of communities of all different sizes. Some of the toughest cases have been here. Not toughest, most interesting proposals that I've seen have been here for sure. So it's
And all of them in the last year.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, and all
so to
of that.
pivot, so to pivot off of that though, I think that's what I'm driving at, that maybe is a little bit different than the rest of the council, I don't know, but I'm looking for you to like be that, you know, for AKSA to
Definitely.
be that planning department, basically to be the roads department.
Sure.
In a lot of ways, and, you know, there may be other, folks you can point us to as well, if KSA is not equipped to do that, but we need help with that, so that
Sure.
Leanne can focus
No,
on
we
other
definitely are.
things.
And it's me, you know, it's me personally, that will be here
Mhm.
and helping, and, I will, commit time to come to more council meetings and
Okay.
to field more questions. You know, I imagine our proposal, you'll have comments, and I'll be happy to come back and to make sure that you're getting what you're expecting. On that.
Oh, and they were completing projects.
Yes, yes, and
That's
that's,
my biggest thing.
I'll go back to the benchmarking because it will take, all of us, you pressing on me to get things done, and then us, meaning me and staff, presenting things for approval and for making those, decisions. The other thing that I think is important, that I was already thinking that should be included is those, quarterly check-ins with the jurisdictions that surround you. I think we talked about this, Leanne, after we met with the county, that it's beneficial for, like you and I to meet with the county every quarter and just talk about cases. Talk about what's coming down the pipes. At this last meeting, they mentioned that they are revisiting the ILA, the agreement, interagency agreement. Well, what are the implications of that? They shared, the updates that they're making to their drainage requirements. Okay, well, the opportunities for us to come back and align ourselves with the county so that developers aren't bouncing around between the town is requiring this, but the county's requiring this other thing, and then they're going back and forth. And just kind of remove that friction, from working with your partners. To go meet with the city engineer from Wiley, with the city engineer from Lucas, and just have kind of an open agenda, where we talk about things and better align, the town with what the permitting environment that the developer has to go through in order to have a project that you wanna see in the town. So yes, definitely, that ongoing kind of, check-ins and meetings and opportunities to, continue fine-tuning, these efforts. Because it is true that, you know, the end result of this will be new, adjusted ordinances, new goals of, you know, vision and mission, from the comp plan. And maybe, you know, that next year, then there are new things that need to be looked at, and the clock starts on the expiration of some of the ordinances. So it is kind of an ongoing thing.
And this is a great opportunity to bridge over to with the conversations we've had to, upgrade our planning and zoning commission with education and making them, they'll have regular meetings and they'll be much better educated and understand better about their projects and what they're having to actually look at and understand, not meeting maybe twice a year or whatever.
Sure.
They're actually going to be, what we hope will be really educated and functioning.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's, you know, and the idea is also with my, with the effort that I'm going to include to have these, check-ins with all of the, not just the jurisdictions, but also planning and zoning. There are some things that involve planning and zoning. The biggest thing is the updates to the land use plan for the town. They are automatic members of that committee to do that. But, you know, this might spur discussions of things that may not have been ever considered in the town. Things like impact fees, you know, that have been around in Texas for a while. A lot of communities already have fee structures. Understood that you know, the impact fees apply to water, sewer, and some of the infrastructure that you don't have. But there are roadway impact fees, there are drainage impact fees, there are parks impact fees, you know, there are things that in those discussions with, for example, planning and zoning, those opportunities might come up for action, or at least, hey, we considered it, but it doesn't make sense now.
So in all of this planning, is KSA, before we move forward, going to put together a proposal, or in this proposal, have pricing?
Yes,
For all of
Counselor.
this?
Yes.
Because we do have, as every municipality has a budget, right? So ours is probably far less vast than most.
Definitely. And that's why just one more opportunity to say that our work will always be really targeted and structured in a way where when you say stop, then, okay, this is what's been completed so far, and we'll pause until you need us again. As engineers, as an engineering firm, we sell our time, and so the costs associated with an hourly basis, or if there are defined efforts, then we can put together an estimate that is reviewed and approved. But yes, to your point, we will never just go out and spend a bunch of time on things that you didn't ask us to do. We will always try to be very structured. Okay, this is how much this effort will take, and we'll get going. If you want to stop, then we can stop. And that's another reason for me to stress a structured way of doing things, so that you don't tackle, just to say kind of the worst case scenario, that we start tackling too much. Like I said, I have an army of 150 people that can generate a lot of information, and I could, you know, send you 100 pages of information, and then you might say, well, no, this is just too much, and then you didn't really accomplish anything. But instead, if we focus efforts, okay, let's focus on the parking and the codes that are associated with parking. Okay, that's the effort, and we don't stop until we have achieved a new ordinance or amend the part of the subdivision regulations that affect parking, and then that's accomplished. Okay,
Now,
that's
is that
done.
accomplished with, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but is your team working with legal aid or counsel to devise these ordinances?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. I will also need the help of your town attorney.
Okay.
And the time, they also work by the hour.
Right.
And so we would have the substance of the ordinances and changes to the laws then need to be turned into legal language by them.
So before moving forward, since you already know high level of what our priorities are that have been defined by other members of council, is there a way that we can get a proposal with an estimated cost per ordinance?
Yes, I could arrive at that. If I
That way
can.
we can get an idea of at least what we're diving into without diving in.
They're blank checks.
Yes, definitely. That would be the worst thing for everybody. You know, for 4 months from now, for me be standing here and you upset at me because I spent too much on something that you didn't want to be spent on.
If we spend all the road budget, it'll be the first time probably ever. So I challenge that we actually spend our budget. It'd be great if we could do an amendment,
Well,
and actually
well,
spend, because
don't
we
let
have a
me-
ton of money.
don't
like I
let me
said
try.
Yeah.
Well, like I
Don't let
said
them
before,
try,
we
yeah.
have, well, yeah, we do need to try. We need to try to spend it all.
No, not
We
him.
have,
We
we
need to try,
We need,
not him.
yes, but he's gonna help us. And so before I move, I do wanna say one more thing, that KSA's been working with the town, and you recognize the size of our town. You've been with us at least over a decade. How long has KSA been working with St. Paul?
Yes, the firm over a decade. Me personally for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so they get it, they get the size of this, they're not gonna, I mean, of course, we're gonna monitor it, every month we watch the budget, you know, so we're not gonna let them run away with it, but I would challenge us to spend the whole budget. We've got a lot of money in the bank, and that's okay, but, you know, again, we need to be good stewards of that, and if we're not gonna get some of these grants because we don't
Right.
fall into the categories, then we need to consider spending it on the town. You know, there's several areas of roads and different things that can be improved, and we need to use the taxpayers' money, and I think, I challenge us to spend it. But yeah, I understand your concerns, I guess.
Just want an
after
itemized
being-
invoice, that's
After
all.
being here for, yeah, but after being here for a while, I'm not worried about that. You know, we watch the budget, Leanne watches the budget, we get audited You know, we look at what the audits are, so we should have itemized the problems there, but let's not worry about, I don't think we need to worry about that part. I think we do need to monitor it, we need to be good stewards of it, but I bet we still don't spend it all.
Sure,
And we need to for the town's sake, because this is all of our money we put in the bank, and we need to be using it to improve. Yeah, we need, right, the highest priority things, the things that are gonna help the most people, the things that have been pain points for a while, like Paul Wilson Road, you know, and other things that are going on. Okay, so anyway, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna echo what, just to add to that, it is true that, the comprehensive plan, for example, the original comp plan, you know, I know you sent it to me, I hadn't actually seen it before, but it may have matched the goals of when it was put together. And now the comp plan requirements, they're lengthier, there's more things you need to consider. So yes, the cost of the comp plan today may be double what you know, updating the comp plan today may be double what the full comp plan may have cost, you know, 10, 15 years ago. So, but it'll always be itemized. Our invoices are itemized by time, by who spent time on what. I get calls from Leanne, hey, we got this invoice, there's 5 hours from this person, what was that for? And then the way we're structured is, everybody that works on anything enters time in our system, and they're attached to a project and a specific effort. For example, the younger engineers that work under me, when they're working on something, they'll get that something done, and then they note on their time sheet what they worked on. So there's a full breakdown of what was spent on what, and that's reflected on the invoices. And then for larger efforts, there's also monthly updates and things that we can put together separately.
Yeah, the road plan's not that old though, right? The road plan, I thought it was like 5 or so.
2018, I
It
think.
was in June of 20.
About 2018.
Some of those things are done, some of them aren't.
About 5 years.
He's
5
gonna-
years-ish?
June of 20 was
Or
the
20.
last
So 9 now.
assessment.
So it shouldn't be that far out, really. I don't
No,
think.
true.
And he said it had a good, I believe when we talked to him, he said it had a good basis, we can start from there and update it to. I'm hoping we can get an updated plan that is one that is, you know, maybe, we identified for how long, 3 years, 5 years, like you said, with benchmarks, so that it always is out there and it was agreed on and it never gets lost as things change through the town. It said Mack truck theory, so I think somebody said truck comes through and wipes us
Yeah.
all out,
Yeah.
then we have something that everybody can.
Make sure we're putting traffic lights on the right street.
Sure.
Thinking of the thoroughfare plan, who designates, A, B, or C? Is
Sure,
that the
that's a good
town,
question.
the county, or the state?
That's a good question. There is guidance from like the industry of transportation that relates how much traffic volume happens on a road, and how the road is connected to highways, and how they distribute traffic to neighborhoods. The higher end roads and the lower end roads are the easiest to identify. What I mean by that is everybody knows what an interstate is, and there's no doubt what an interstate is. Everybody knows what a local road is. It's the roads that are in between. Is it a collector? Is it a minor arterial? Is it a principal arterial? And part of the thoroughfare plan is to actually set a definition within the ranges that are allowed of what constitutes each category of road. Fortunately, that being a community in a big metroplex, there's a lot of regional agreement on what that means, and the Council of Governments is the resource for getting that guidance. There is also a little bit of a public element to the thoroughfare plan. What I mean by that is your thoroughfare plan also ideally identifies new connections that are needed and what class of road that should be. In the town, I don't expect any new 6-lane highways that are needed, but the thoroughfare plan might identify some connections that are identified as needs. Do you have to act on it immediately? No. Do you have to go now find funding? No, but if there's ever an opportunity to make those connections, and to Leanne's point, that plan was set in place for a reason. And, you know, as council changes, that plan can always be referenced as what was identified as those needs for roadway improvements.
Well, and a lot of that stuff, like you said, is the North Texas Council of Government and the county are doing, like the Park Road connection, that's something that they identified and that we are certainly a part of, but they helped identify the need for it and put that together. I think what we're looking for is more of the pedestrian, neighborhood type roads, yeah. That kind of, because
Yes, you're exactly
the North
right.
Texas Council of Government and the counties need to take care of the larger thoroughfares.
That's exactly right. Those are included in their version of the
Yeah.
thoroughfare plan, which is their mobility plan,
Right.
which looks at the roads that interconnect communities, so
Right.
Parker Road and those kinds of roads. So you integrate those, and then, you're exactly right, then at the local level, you see what connections are needed within the community.
So follow-up to that is, do surveys have to be done? Or is it
Surveys,
us knowing, or?
sure, you mean surveys of the community, or,
The street.
like design surveys, like
Yes.
mapping? No, it's all based on conceptual alignments. It's just a classification of the existing facilities. And it just so happens that your map is fairly accurate. It captures the existing right-of-way fairly well. We have updated at times when new developments come in and things like that. That's also something that may be updated
Yeah,
with this
we're
effort.
gonna need to update.
Just new subdivisions that have come online and things like that.
They should
Um,
be changes.
But you don't need to map things that aren't, for example, if there's a new road connection that needs to happen, you don't need to go out and survey it and design it or anything. You just identify it as something that is a goal of the town in a conceptual map.
So if we're talking about timelines and all, you know, we've been working on this for a number of years, you know, and I'm just gonna throw it out that, you know, we get the fact that this stuff doesn't happen overnight. You don't get roads built, none of it happens overnight. The plans don't take place overnight. You don't build the new comprehensive plan and all overnight. She said it takes a while. What are we looking at before we're able to get a workable parking?
So I'll call it a
Place.
parking update to your existing subdivision standards.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, and to add to that, when you said asphalt, I said concrete, and you went off and said, oh, then that brings in all this other, the water movement, now we're changing everything, and that all comes into play also, because that's really what we're looking at is, if someone's gonna drop an acre of concrete, it's going to change the water flow. And what?
That brings the state in.
Yeah. So what is it gonna take, how long is it gonna take for us to get this figured out?
Sure.
Our planning and zoning is gonna be involved with it also. They're gonna
Yes.
give us their recommendation.
I would say that each ordinance, and this doesn't mean that, I'll give a number of months, but it doesn't mean that you have to completely fit. I know I mentioned focusing on one thing.
Right.
But you could have a couple of things going on at the same time, but, just hearing you talk and picturing how the workshops will go, timing things with council, if I remember right, a new ordinance has to be heard at one council meeting, acted on at the next, there's a public hearing component, so there's all that. I would say that a realistic number that we would shoot to get done sooner would be that each ordinance takes about 5 to 6 months. I think that's a realistic target. Yes, now there might be some changes that, in consultation with your town attorney, they turn out to be administrative changes,
Right.
and then we just make those changes. What I'm picturing there is some of the procedural things that, updating some forms. For example, I know we've talked about this, that there's a reference in some of your codes to a grading permit, but a form doesn't exist, and so that could be put together in a week. And so that's delivered. So there's just a lot of moving parts, but for those ordinances that are kind of a complete ordinance, I would say about 6 months ahead. months, and that includes, approximately 2 months of analysis at council, the public hearing,
But no, that's a focus. That's if we're able to keep everyone focused on one or two items, and we're not out chasing.
Well, and
Everything.
with the plan for planning and zoning to meet more regularly and on a regular basis, this then does fall into their tasks, and, like I said, it'll be good to have somebody focused on it on a regular basis, and they'll have, when they're not having to consider some big thing that consumes the whole meeting, then they're now tasked with going through these and understanding that
We're getting a little off on your subject here. We can talk about this
but
later.
this all helps
No, that-
inform the way that
But
way.
it's
No, I wanna put a pin in it that, where we're, as you said, we wanna be able to wrap the project up. We wanna put a pin in it and say, this is what we want it by this time, and.
And that sounds
6
like it really
months.
falls on, he's gonna get us the tools to do it with, but it will fall on our planning and zoning and our council. to
As is
do it.
required by state law, by the
Right.
way. I mean, the reason we have to have planning and zoning involved because it's in the state code that we have to do that. And I get it, that makes sense to have different boards that are looking at it. But we can meet more often than once a month.
Yes,
We may have to.
yes,
We vote.
Yes, and in
So
fact, I
are
was.
we giving him the budget to move forward on the parking that we just?
We still need,
That has a
he's,
little-
within a week, he's gonna be
Right.
providing us a list of the things that they think that are the most important to us. We need to review the list, and if
Correct.
there's something missing, make sure it's on the list.
Absolutely.
And then we can decide what we wanna do.
what you wanna
Do
call
on
it.
this
Exactly.
list.
So we are giving him a motion, direct marching orders to move forward on something for us.
To provide us an estimate.
Yep.
Provide us
Okay.
a proposal. Yeah.
Short-term list.
Okay. That's all I wanted to commit, where we're at.
All right.
Same as you.
Do you have anything else to ask? Up here? Sure? All right.
Oh, what, can I say one thing?
Well, I was gonna ask you next if you have anything.
Appreciate it. On the meeting more often, a way that councils do tackle this is exactly that,
Workshop.
a workshop, yes. I know it has to be, you're being quorum by having a workshop, and so there's a procedure to do that, to meet the Open Meetings Act. But yes, a dedicated, workshop where the attention, from you all is just on this effort, as opposed to, trying to work this into council meetings, or else you're gonna be here till 11:30 at night every, second Monday of the month.
All right, anything else? That it?
Thank you.
We good?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, I appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I know you, asking about how long we've been working, for the town, and I just want to say, I personally have really enjoyed, working with, the town throughout the years and getting to know, your community. Look forward to making it, continuing to keep it, functioning well.
Great, thank you.
And just to let y'all know, he drops everything he's doing to help us anytime we need help, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
Oh, no, it's my job. Thank you.
Drive safely.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any motions needed with this?
No.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna go to item number 4, citizen comments. I have 2 comment sheets, and we'll start with Sarah Beth, if you can come up.
I have one, I just didn't give it to you.
Okay, bring it up. Sarah Beth, come up, state your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Sarah Beth Graham. I live at 3525 Lakeway Drive. So this is kind of what we were just hearing about, but I'm just gonna state my pre-prepared, comments anyway. I requested further clarification of the proposed new parking space ordinance mentioned at the last town council meeting via a public information request form. I was sent information back stating that my request had been denied, so that there could be frank discussion regarding this ordinance change with the town's attorney and engineer, in order to make policy decisions. When it's in a finalized version, it should be stated precisely, and the public should be informed so that our voices can be heard regarding this matter prior to it being voted on. The denial letter specifically stated that this issue has generated considerable attention from town residents. Since the council is aware of this fact, I would have expected more transparency on the ordinance change versus what happened, which was just complete denial of information. I'm very disappointed in the lack of clarity, and I'm looking forward to the draft version being finalized so that town residents can rightfully find out what the proposed new ordinance will be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Then I got one from Kent.
Yeah, Kent Swanner, 2500 Levon Parkway. So several months back, you guys mentioned, we were talking about the cleanup green up and how, because of lack of participation, volunteers, that we didn't do it in the fall, and you were talking about possibly getting rid of it. And I can tell you without a doubt that from being here, it's a great thing. We set record the last time that we did it with 9 dumpsters. That shows you the participation rate is extremely high. I see 7 wonderful people right here before me. You can all volunteer. I've been doing it for years. You can do it. I know you can. So just keep that in mind. Also, if I was at Home Depot and I had to walk through and there was a nice gentleman there, Boy Scout leader with his son, and I just said, hey, got a question for you. Do y'all do community service? He said, absolutely. Calls local 78 Wiley Boy Scout group, and they'll be more than happy to churn in, do community service, and help fund the green up. So labor's not a problem. You just have to actively search for it. It's out there, we can do it, and I'd like to see that back. The other thing at the last meeting was mentioned was the 8-foot wall. I know John has mentioned that and wants to take a look at that. I can tell you without a doubt that on the Vaughn Parkway, we got a commercial lot on the corner. Mo Cartwright lives across the street, Richard James lives next door. If that 8-foot wall gets taken out of the ordinances, you will devastate my real estate value and everybody on the Vaughn Parkway. That is an important aspect to be able to separate commercial from residential to keep the lights off of it. We finally got that storage building back up. It cut those lights out. So if you don't have some kind of wall, barrier, or something to cut noise, trash, light, traffic, anything else, it's a big mistake. And that's kind of what I heard Abiel talk about, possibly lessening some restrictions. Be very cautious. Be very cautious, because it could come back to hurt the town. So just know that up front. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Leo?
Leah.
Leo? Sorry, Leo.
That's okay. 2525, Levon Parkway. I was just gonna ask about the ordinance committee, because technically we're still supposed to be doing it, correct? But my question now is, after talking or hearing him speak, it sounds like, I don't know if we're not gonna need it anymore, because it sounds like we're asking him for some of the stuff that we could do as an ordinance committee, which is review some of those ordinances, you know, figure out what needs to be changed, how it's affecting other ordinances. I thought that was kind of what our goal was gonna be. And then obviously, yes, you have to talk to, you know, the legal folks, I get it, but it sounds like it's an extra step and that's someone you have to pay for. So if it's something that we can do and you've got the volunteers, I just kind of wanted to see where we're at with that.
Okay. Just a little tidbit on that. What we found out is that got to go through planning and zoning. So that's where we're going. That's what the town's doing, is planning and zoning is gonna look at the codes.
So we're no longer
Changes.
having an ordinance
And recommend
committee?
it to us. What's that?
So we're no longer having an ordinance committee?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Do you formally have to make a motion to disband it because it was a council vote that put it together in the first place?
Oh, no, we'll check on that. But, what's that?
New information, yeah, without checking.
Mr. London,
I'm just gonna let council know, I did
can you
submit.
speak to your name and address, please?
Oh, Robert London, 2450 Butcher's Block. I did submit an application to serve on P&Z. I think I can bring a lot of knowledge to the table and help expedite quite a few things and possibly save the town quite a bit of money. And P&Z's got a lot of responsibility according to our ordinances, what they've got to accomplish. And I'm willing to jump in as a volunteer and help get some of that stuff done, if you guys want to have me.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything they wanna bring up? Okay. Then item number 5 is, it's not, yeah, it's not an item, but, got a motion that we adjourn, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who first? No, you guys need to make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second, John.
Okay, we stand adjourned at 8:50.
We've been
8:50.
like three months ago.
Guys, I've got stuff.
Okay, great.